Apple's first new product of 2025 is coming. Let's take a look at it.
Welcome to the All Future podcast, where we talk all things Apple, tech, AI, humanoid robots, and a lot more in that last episode. But we talk about all these things throughout the week. So thank you so much for watching if you are watching, and consider subscribing if you haven't yet. I guess, what were you going to say?
We would definitely appreciate the subscribing.
Mm-hmm. We would definitely appreciate it. And today we're talking about Apple products for 2025. So Apple's first product of 2025 to be released is rumored to be the new MacBook Air.
Ta-da!
Basically, it's going to be an update to the 13 and 15-inch models, and they're going to add the M4 chip.
Yeah, no design upgrade whatsoever, just adding the M4 chip.
Mm-hmm. I will say that I have seen some pretty good benchmarks versus the M3, so I think the M4 will be appreciated, but it's like if you have an M3, it's not going to be one of those things that you need to upgrade.
I've been thinking about upgrading to this M4 chip for local LLM stuff. And I think that's why Apple's really pushing it in general. They think they're going to need more RAM and more processing power to run things like, if they put out a new Siri that's powered by an LLM, they're going to need that extra horsepower to get the kind of like snappy response that people are used to with Siri.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of response are you used to with Siri. Does she get back to you like quickly or no?
I don't... Like on a computer?
Yeah.
You're using Siri on a computer?
Not on a computer, but just M4 in general. But I use it occasionally. I like to type to Siri sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Or just to control things. Like
the type thing's pretty quick.
If you want to turn off your lights and you're on a laptop anyways or something like that, or, turn on a song or something. And
yeah.
So that's usually what I'm using it for. But
Yeah, I'm used to using it on HomePods, and it's pretty bad on HomePods, as I've talked about a few times on this podcast.
Yeah, still the song kind of stuff, too, is like, you can't, like, there's no machine learning on the back end to know. And I've said this exact thing that, like, you can't play Chapel Roan, even though my wife's listened to Chapel Roan every morning for, a week or something. So, we really need to get the machine learning in check, which will hopefully be like one of these features of Apple Intelligence, is that it can actually know you. And then once those features start to, make sense, that's when these M4 chips will really sell themselves. You need that M4 chip and the extra RAM for Apple Intelligence.
Yeah.
And Apple Intelligence will get to know you and get to know your preferences. And so it will make your Siri better, and it will make all these things better for you.
Yeah, I feel like one of the things that Apple doesn't really like doing is comparing directly to their other products to show how much better it is. Like, yes, they'll do that in terms of like 10x better graphics performance than the previous model and stuff. But as far as going like, all right, let's do a Siri command and then see how bad it is on our old machine versus how new it is on our new machine, or how good it is on our new machine. And I feel like they're going to have to start doing that stuff in order to sell this, because otherwise you're like, I don't know, Siri's a little bit better. Like, how much better could it be?
Yeah.
And it's going to take them admitting like, yeah, it's been kind of bad, but this new chip, we promise it actually makes it better.
Yeah, no, and then then they don't have to work so hard and go like, look, it's a new computer. It's not really a new computer. It's just a new chip, and you really have to like sell someone, especially in the MacBook Air line, which is made for like college kids who just want a computer that works. It's not going to get viruses or, and it's going to be more expensive than a PC, but they won't have to replace it, in their whole 4 years of college. Like this... even an M3 device right now would be good for that. If you bought that, it would make you through, the whole thing, unless you're a computer science major or, something else like that. But it used to be, in our era that you had to upgrade those things, because there was such a difference between, generations that you really did have to upgrade, because it really did make a huge difference. It was, either, you're taking minutes, like 20-ish minutes off an export for a video or something like that. Or, it used to be like you can only, in audio world, in our world, like you can only run 4 channels before the processing started like, giving out on you. But as soon as you moved up to like, the next processor or more gigs of RAM, now you can record 8 channels with like no latency or something like that. So it really was a big difference. And now the differences are starting to be like, very small. Like all these machines can record a whole symphony orchestra right now on a laptop or something,
Yeah.
That's why the recommendations come out that you shouldn't even get this M4 version. You can honestly just get somewhere between an M1 and an M4 and you would be okay.
For the majority of people, I would say that's probably the case.
And so if you've never owned a Mac product before, you're just trying to get into the fold, you can still get Apple Intelligence with everything M1. You don't want anything before the M1 benchmark. And if you don't know what that is, that's Apple's proprietary chip, the M1 chip. And the M series chips are Apple's own design chips to work with their machines better. They used to be Intel before that. Stay away from anything Intel.
At this point, yeah, absolutely.
Because Apple's just not supporting it anymore. Not because they don't make good chips or whatever.
But a lot of stuff performs way better, even on an M1 versus what was the best Intel chip they had before. And like cooling's way better. Fans used to have to turn on a lot more on old machines to get the same tasks done. So yeah, it's definitely worthwhile. If you're going for a Mac, definitely start with their chips. And like you're saying, it's like kind of future proofing it. Apple's going to keep upgrading and supporting their own chips for a while.
Yeah, exactly. And I have an M1 desktop machine at home. I have a little Mac Mini that runs on an M1. And it like gets clogged up a little bit, but 90% of the time, if I'm not running like 100 windows of Safari and, also running like Photoshop and all these other stuff, like that's only when I get clogged and I have like, I'll have a Photoshop file that's like literally a gig's worth of material or something. It's like, okay, I'd expect you to get clogged up here. But 90% of the time for basic stuff like Google Sheets or anything like that, I'm not having any issues whatsoever.
Yeah.
Mail, attachments, like nothing. So really the M1 machine is recommended for like almost everyone just getting into it. If you're the college kid who wants a 4-year machine, you might want to plus up into the M2 or the M3 category.
Yeah. So apparently, the M1 is still sold, right? I don't think Apple sells it directly, but you can get it through other retailers.
Yeah, you get it through resellers. I like Swappa. Have you ever seen the site Swappa? They only sell Apple products and tech products there. It's not like eBay where like you have a million devices and it's really hard to tell what stuff is. They have it really well categorized, and it says like, right there, it's an M1 chip. It has this much RAM. So it's like built for people who know what they're doing with this stuff. And the quality of stuff I've gotten on Swappa, like I've never had an issue with it. So it's more like buying it from a tech enthusiast than it is like buying it from someone on eBay.
Yeah. And then Apple still sells the M2 MacBook Air. From them, it starts at $1,000, and then M3 starts at $1,100, I think. But a lot of times we're seeing these discounted from other retailers.
Yeah,
like
up to
even Amazon,
$200
Walmart.
off, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can see the M2 MacBook Air at $800 instead of $1,000. So it's always great to shop around. Apple's store is very nice, going in person is very nice. But a lot of these computers, especially if you're not upgrading little custom things in as far as like RAM and whatnot, a lot of these machines you can get cheaper elsewhere, Best Buy, Walmart, Amazon. So always be checking those places if you're in the market for these types of machines.
Yeah, definitely. And I think either an M2 or an M3 will get you through, the next couple years. I think my MacBook Pro right now that I edit video on and do a bunch of stuff on the road is an M2. And I just upgraded to the M2 from my M1 because it had an SD card slot reader and not because of the processing, because it was super annoying. The M1 models of MacBook Pros, I know this is like getting off topic of MacBook Airs, but they're still going to have this problem depending on if you use it for this stuff, is you had to use these dongles all the time that plug in, and then you have to plug in your SD card there, and it was annoying because it only had USB-C ports and all the cabling wasn't made for things yet to support that. Now we kind of have cables for everything, and then everything's more USB-C now, where like your phone used in USB-A or whatever, and now like USB-C is sort of winning the war. So that might not be as big of a deal now, but I definitely upgraded to have more ports.
And HDMI was another port for the MacBook Pro. I remember adding that was great because it was like, you're just in a situation where you didn't bring it. You didn't bring the converter, and they're like, oh, I have HDMI. You want to hook up? And you're like, yeah, I can't because I have the newest MacBook. It was pretty silly. So you upgraded to M2 and you're doing fine now?
I'm doing fine on an M2 right now. I occasionally, if we run into a really bad, both our editors are sick over here. I'll edit a video every once in a while in 4K, and I'll edit music videos every once in a while in 4K on the MacBook and on the M1. And I'm not running into any issues until I get to the very final process where, so with video editing, to explain it, you're using the most processing power at the very end because cutting the video itself, isn't super hard on the processor until you get all of the things have their own effects on them. So now you have color, now you have your contrast effect, and all those things stack up on the processing power. So as you add those things, it gets harder to play. Just at the very end do I start to feel the computer start to choke on things. And but still at M2, it's not that big of a deal. I can get, and then the export time, which is the hardest thing in video exporting, used to be 30 minutes to an hour to export 4K. It used to be we would make a YouTube video that was in 4K and we used to go to lunch because that's how long it took to export. And if you made a mistake, good luck because you had to go back in there and literally re-export the entire file for one thing.
Oh yeah.
And
And I remember the days of an export error. And so you come back from lunch or you come back from whatever and you're like, oh my gosh. And then you have to track down why some frame has an issue. Man, yeah. It's such a different world now to where you can export in 2 minutes and then be like, oh, there's a little issue. Okay, let me fix it. Export again. Truly amazing technology. But all this to say, the M4 MacBook Airs are coming, but it's a great upgrade that they're doing, but you probably will be fine with what they're currently offering. And then soon enough, those already marked down computers will probably be cheaper because of the M4.
Yeah, so that's why, the recommendation is to not buy a 3 and M3 chip now, is because we're going to see the M4, the M3s are going to get cheaper, everything's going to run down that echelon, and so maybe buy one more rung used to get the best bang for your buck. But if you want one of those 4-year machines and you need it now, then just get an M3. It's not, the end of the world. It's not the same thing as it used to be. It used to be, if you got the lower upgrade, you were literally it's 30 more minutes to do everything that you had to do. But now it's, the M4 is going to get it done in 2 more minutes,
So another product that's probably going to upgrade to M4 soon is the iPad Air. And it looks like that one is going to just skip the M2, or skip the M3. Currently, the iPad Air is on M2. The upgrade's going to come soon enough to get it up to spec with the iPad Pros for M4. Same kind of deal here. They're skipping M3 because they're going straight to what the current chip is, and that's coming soon. Yeah,
and I think that's, again, just trying to get the Apple Intelligence thing in there. I did see a recent statistic that as of right now, Apple Intelligence, which is their flagship, trying to be their flagship selling point, does not factor into most people's decisions to buy an iPhone right now.
I don't think it should. As someone using it, I don't think it should.
I still love the summaries. I think summaries are good, even though someone was getting sued over the summaries because it misrepresented what was in the text message. And so I think someone acted on a summary and now is trying to sue Apple because it was it was a bigger business thing or didn't summarize it correctly. And they were just having problems with it. So you shouldn't take any of those summaries as the truth. You should use them as this is what it could be. And then, take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
And have you seen their new commercials for Genmoji?
I haven't.
The best part about watching football and football season is I actually watch commercials that other people might be seeing. Otherwise, I'm like a normal person. I just watch streaming all the time with no commercials. But they're really hyping the Genmoji thing. And then there's tons of stuff on Reddit right now of people breaking, when a 16-year-old kid gets a hold of that thing, its whole, goal is to try to make something crude or whatever. And so there's a ton of those crude images floating around online of people breaking Genmoji to do things that it wasn't meant to do, that I'm sure Apple spent months trying to get the right guardrails up so kids couldn't do stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then they go like, how could you possibly make something that looks weird? And then within 10 minutes, they already broke the feature or whatever. But
Yeah. Classic teenagers.
yeah, ruining everything.
Anyways, a product that most teenagers probably aren't buying is the Apple Watch Ultra 3. And that's one coming, rumored to be coming soon, possibly launching in September. So I guess that's not very soon, but later this year. And that's going to bring, quote, a hefty health upgrade. So I don't know, improvements to all the health things. And there's been at least one sensor. I don't remember if it was blood glucose monitor or something like that they're hoping to add in the future. But then it seems like the Apple Watch SE3 might be actually getting a redesign.
Ooh. Any redesigns are good. I like people knowing that you have the latest and greatest thing. With the MacBook Air and the shell, I understand that it's cost effective to do those things and you want to upgrade your machine without doing a full redesign, but like I like the full redesigns. I like being able to tell from afar that you have a new product. So I'm all for adding features, but you want someone to know like you have that color, like you can't get that color. Especially on something like a watch where you don't put a case on it.
Yeah.
That's the problem with all the... I use a case, so when I get a new iPhone Pro or something, it's like, oh, you got it in desert sand, and then it's like, yeah, but then they just threw a case on it so no one knows, so...
Yeah. Guess what color my phone is? I guess you can see it with the buttons, but or the cameras at least. But it looks like actually the upgrades that are coming across the watch lineup would be high blood pressure detection, and then bolstered satellite tech and 5G, which brings us to talk about satellite tech.
Yeah, Apple's investing heavily in satellite technology. I think everyone sees that this is the future of communications technology. But it's not as easy as everyone thinks, because I think people think that, what's happening right now is they're already using satellites for their communications, which they are. They're just using satellites in conjunction with these antennae that are on the ground. And so... think about it like your Wi-Fi router or whatever. You need to have the satellite beaming the information to it, like this actual stationary device that gives you the range of your service.
Yeah.
And so the difference between that and a satellite is like now you physically have to be communicating directly with the satellite and not the stationary thing on the ground. And you move around. And once this satellite leaves your field of view, then you have to connect to this other satellite seamlessly. And that's what this new patent is about, is trying to make sure that your connection to these different satellites is seamless.
So this is a patent granted to Apple?
Yeah, correct.
Wow. So I'm curious to see, I guess they'll probably do this still through partners. I doubt we're going to see Apple's own proprietary satellites launching anytime soon.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're seeing the Starlink T-Mobile thing happen. But again, it's not good service. It's not like... Starlink on a cruise ship or Starlink actually using the device where you get all this, that is like a giant paddle receiver that's designed to receive this information from these satellites. This is literally like trying to do the same thing on your phone, in your pocket or on your ear or something. And if you ever tried to use the satellite right now, which is really cool, we've talked about it on other shows, but like you literally have to align your phone in the right way and look in the right direction to make sure that you're, getting service. And then you can only send text messages and phone calls. And so I imagine as this thing grows, it's just getting you service outside of cell range, basically. And it's going to be basic, like, texting and phone calls.
Yeah.
So don't think of like satellite as the next big thing, even though we'll probably title all our videos that. So, click on those videos. But it's for a long time, it's not going to be as good for that reason.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see where it goes, though, because Starlink is getting much better, and they're launching satellites all the time, and I think more people are catching on. And then there's this partnership with T-Mobile, so that's going to bring it to tons of iPhone users, and, of course, Android users as well. And, I think they're launching satellites specifically for that function, that are for the direct-to-cell function, and they wouldn't be functioning for the broader Starlink network. But this Apple thing is separate from Starlink. This is not Starlink product. So we're seeing competitors in this space. I do have the fear that we're going to end up like the opening scene of, or it's not the opening scene. It's when they fly out of Earth in WALL-E. Yeah. And they like bust through a group of satellites. I have a fear that that's where we're going with so many satellites for all of this connectivity, but there's a lot of space up there.
Yeah, that's what I have to think about too and remind myself. You always get pushed this thing every once in a while that like Russia just blew up a satellite and, everyone is bracing in the USS space station. They literally have to track like every single piece of debris that goes in every direction from those things just in case, because it can just damage everything else up there. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, try to think about how big the American countryside is or things like that, or insert your country here and think about your countryside, and that it's like that but bigger than the Earth, and that's how much space is up there. And so there could be like miles and miles in between these things. Mm-hmm. They're not like right next to each other. Unless they're the Starlink cluster, flying through the sky or whatever. But yeah, there's a lot of space up there, so I don't think we're gonna have those issues.
Yeah, but those features are coming soon. Apparently, it's going to get better in watches in the future, and probably satellite coming to the SE, as well as better health features. But then the other story seems for their computers seems to be M4 is for the MacBook Air and the iPad Air. So then we'll just be waiting to hear about the next iPhone.
Yeah, I can't wait.